Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings. As always, I'm here with Ben Bergeron. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, and how the heck are you, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Patrick.
Wonders. Good to see you. Good to be here. What we've got this week: 3 listener questions, one about solving a double under problem, one about helping a significant other put a plan in place to get fit, and one about dealing with being a female in a predominantly male workplace. In our workout, we're going to tackle another listener question all about finding purpose later on in life. And then we'll wrap up with a snippet from a conversation I had recently over on the premium side of things with listener Nick about how he's building stronger friendships. We're going to get to that as we wrap up the episode. Just a reminder, we do invite you to jump into the premium subscription where you'll find more content, conversation. We're also running currently a new challenge that I'm really excited about. You can get there, www.chasingexcellence.email. The link is in the show notes for easy clickability. All right, you ready to jump into our warm-up?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, start each episode with listener questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors: how we eat, how we move, how we think, connect, and recover. We've got 3 questions, one in our move, one in our think, and one in our connect buckets. This is from Georgie. She is a member over on the premium side of things. As a reminder, if you're over there and you submit a question, I basically do everything I can to get it into the soonest episode I can. So thanks to Georgie for being a premium member. This is her question. On the second rotation of the rope while doing double unders, I tend to involuntarily straighten the arms and bring them close to my thighs and behind the body, misshaping the loop of the passing rope, catching my feet and whipping my arms or face as a result. The only partial solution to this problem I found is wrapping an elastic band around my wrists and pass it in front of the body to keep my arms where they should be. This, of course, is not ideal or sustainable when it comes to workouts, so I scale to singles. Have you got any suggestions for how to tackle involuntary arm movements in double unders? I've been doing CrossFit for nearly 10 years and been following CompTrain for 2 years.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being Chasing Excellence and a CompTrain follower. Yes, and it says I do have some suggestions. I just want to create a picture for people that probably aren't following along with
that's helpful.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and I'm trying to do my best to create my own picture. What Georgie's doing is her hands move a lot during the double under, which means that she is saying that she extends down to below her waist at some point, which then causes the rope to fold on itself and become misshapen. The way that she's fixed this is band is not as important. But that's the key takeaway, is that what she's doing with her arms isn't ideal. So first thing we have to do is, what is the ideal for the arms? And the ideal is where she's ending up. So it's not that where she's ending up that is the problem, is that she's leaving that position. The ideal is that your arms are completely locked out and they are completely straight and your wrists are by your thighs. If you watch, I think her name is Molly Metz. We've talked about her on the podcast before, and she actually reached out. Yep, she actually reached out to me and was like, "So cool, that you mentioned me." But if you watch, she has the world record for most consecutive double unders, or it's most in 10 minutes. I forget the specifics, but she's unbelievable. And what you'll see is and the reason I bring that up is because we should be mimicking the world's best, right? Not the best person does double unders in your gym, but true world-class performers. Not the best rower in your gym, but who's the best rowers in the world. That's what we should be looking for. And you'll see that her arms are completely straight by her side. So what's happening, my belief with Georgie, is that the reason the rope is becoming misshapen is not necessarily that their hands are coming behind her, although I'd have to see how excessive that is. My guess is that the rope is too long, first and foremost, and that when she straightens her arms, too much of the rope is hitting the ground, which then when it leaves the ground, it's now become it's misshapen. So the trick to this is practice single unders, which sounds like she's doing, with the appropriate length rope, which is stand on it with one leg and have the handles come up to your armpits. That's going to get you really, really close. And then practice with that, not moving your arms with the single unders. That's the first trick to the whole thing. And then from there, the next trick is put the rope down and practice just jumping nice and rhythmically. Forget about your hands. Just work on your feet. And are your feet pedaling the ground like a pogo stick and your knees staying straight in the air? And this is what a lot of people miss. Your legs should be straight in the air. Your arms should be straight in the air. Okay, if we can do that, where we're just kind of like jumping almost like a penguin, like jump straight up, jump straight up, jump straight up, real rhythmically, just a little bit higher than a single. Then can you tap your legs twice in the air with straight arms? Now, if you can do that, now the rhythm of just turning through the wrist. It's not what Georgie's doing. It's not a turn through the elbows. It's not a turn through the shoulders. That's the reason that your hands are leaving the front and you're solving it with the band. But really the trick is train it to where you can tap your thighs when you're in the air. If you can do that, now you have the body positioning for it. Everything else becomes a timing issue. And that's how you build yourself back up from a fault that you have in the double unders. More common than we see than the arms is people are piking, meaning they're creasing at the hips with straight legs. They're donkey kicking, meaning they're kicking their heels behind them, or they're knee tucking, which is they're bending their knees and pulling their knees up in front of them because they think they have to jump higher to jump over the rope. It's not about jumping higher. It's about rotating faster. The fastest rotation happens through the wrist, not through the elbows or the shoulders.
Got it. Take it. All right. Thank you, Georgie. This question is from Gary. It's in our Think category. My question is for my wife, who gave birth to our second kid a little over a year ago. She's been a strong runner in the past and completed an Ironman about 4 years ago before getting pregnant with our first kid. Since then, she's had a really hard time getting back to what she considers her baseline weight and body shape, even though she runs or does a Peloton 5 to 6 days a week and eats a good diet. What recommendations do you have for how I can help her formulate a plan to achieve her goal? And what specific protocols, macros, getting in more gym workouts, etc., would you recommend to help get her there?
Yeah. So, okay. My hesitation is like, how do I do this tactfully?
Tactfully?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was an Ironman 4 years ago when she had her ideal body weight. Now she's doing Peloton 5 days a week. That's such like a world of difference, especially after giving birth twice, I think. Like it's not going to happen doing that. If that's what ideal weight was. And if particularly if the nutrition and all the rest is falling back into where it was, but the training is not, it's like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist is really what this comes down to. I'm not saying go back and do Ironman training, but what are we defining as ideal? Because if it's a marathon body where I've done 2 Ironmans. I know what it takes. Normal, just to kind of paint the picture of it, a normal training week is, I'll say a normal Saturday. A normal Saturday is you swim for an hour to an hour and a half, followed by a 60 to 80 mile bike ride. Like that's 4 or 5 hours on the bike. After an hour swim, that's 5 hours of training. A normal weekday might consist of, running, between 8 and 12 miles at a time. Like that's so outside the scope of doing like a 40 to 60 minute Peloton class. So it's really, we're comparing like apples and oranges. Okay, so that's the first thing is like, that's where you were, this is where you are. Now where you are, what's the best way that we can help you move forward? The first one would be that was then, this is now. Just like, but from there, it's all the stuff that we talk about all the time. It's how you eat, sleep, train, think, and connect. That's like, and it's all of those things together. What's the most important one? Your training. Like training is the most important one. I don't think that anyone's going to get to the body composition they want off of Peloton 5 days a week. It's way better than nothing. Way, we're talking about you're moving from 0 to probably like a score of like 50, 60, 70. Like it's that's a lot of points that you're getting, but it's nowhere near ideal body composition. Like to get there, you train the way that we train, which is you lift heavy 2 or 3 days a week. You do workouts that are going to get you out of breath, combining weights, body weights, and cardio 5 or 6 days a week. and you run at least 2 of those days. That's how it goes. And the run can be in the workouts. Go through a full range of motion. But that's the idea. That's what this level of training, if you want really good body composition, and that's not a crazy, I'm not saying train anymore, but I'm saying you got to like build up some muscle. You got to do some strength training 2 or 3 days a week. On top of that, some of those should be shorter workouts of 10 to 15 minutes, probably paired with those same days. The other days go a little bit longer. It could be 15, but you go up to 40 minutes of this mixed modal type of thing where you're getting out of breath. We call it cyclical threshold conditioning, something that a pace that you could not hold for more than 2 or 3 minutes. So you're forced to take a little break and then go again, forced to take a little break, go again. It can be set intervals or not. Murph is that, right? You're not gonna be able to do pull-ups for 3 minutes, so you have to take a break. That's what it is. And then, some of those days should be running. I just really believe that. I believe running is one of the really powerful tools, particularly if she was a former triathlete, she'll like it. And then from there, it goes into macros. And, macros is the thing for body composition. If you want health, you eat clean. But if you just want body comp, it's getting the right macros. What are the right macros? Depending on body size, but I can say for pretty high level of confidence, most females are going to be around 1,500 calories plus or minus 300 calories. If you want to call it 600 plus or minus 3, that's totally cool. If you're crazy active and you're also like, coaching soccer and lacrosse and you're gardening all day long, that'd be on, or you're a much bigger person, former triathlete, probably not. That could be on the higher side. Maybe 2,000, 2,200. We certainly have games athletes that are, closer to 3,000, but that's training 6 hours. That's more like a triathlete. And then 40, 30, 30 as the breakdown. So I'll just back up to this whole thing again. 5 or 6 days a week of training the way we train, eat real food, and 40% carbohydrates, 30% fat, 30% protein is the starting point, probably somewhere around 1,500 to 1,800 calories.
Take it. One follow-up question. I'm just curious if you at the gym there at CrossFit New England, do you have a lot of folks who walk in and say, hey, 4 years ago, I did an Ironman. I've had a couple kids. I haven't trained that hard. I really want to get back to what I looked like, performed like, again, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, before all of these major life shifts. And obviously walking into the gym, they're saying, hey, I'd like to train like this. That would be an obvious assumption to make. But do you have that a lot where folks are like, no, all I need to do is work hard for a little while and I can get back to where I was 4 to 5 years ago? Do you get that a lot, or does that happen less often than you'd imagine?
No, I think a really common use case for most people walking into the gym that have been away for a while is, I want to be what I once was. I want to get back to this feeling, this look. I felt really confident. I felt really capable. I really liked that feeling. Maybe it was in my early 20s. Maybe it was when I, did this event. I'd love to get back to that place. That's not a wrong goal. That's not wrong at all. That's awesome. Now, if you're talking to me in your mid 50s and you want to feel like you did when you were 17, there's a level of realism to this thing, right? So we're not going to be quite as there because we're decades past where we were. But somebody saying like, hey, I was in great shape. I played college soccer. I want to feel like and look like something like I did then. Depending on how far removed, that's not out of place. ... As long as it's not Division I soccer and now I'm 55 and 60 pounds overweight. Like we can get you the 60 pounds off, but you're 55. Like the best in shape 55-year-old, I don't care who they are, Tom Brady, he's not 55 yet, but the person that's taking care of their body like a temple will not feel like that same person did if they were a high-level Division I athlete at 21, 22. It's just not the case.
Got it. Okay. Last question we've got. It's in our Connect bucket. It's from Chelsea. Do you have any advice for females working in a predominantly male line of work? I'm a female cop with what I would describe as a quote unquote alpha personality with a high drive to perform and get after it. I can't help but feel like I have to work twice as hard to be taken as seriously or to be viewed just as competent as my male counterparts. To that, I have come to terms with this and have made it into an opportunity/challenge to rise to the occasion, to put in extra work to prove myself as an asset. The problem I have is I will tend to get in my head from time to time, put added pressure on myself while feeling like I always have something to prove. I guess I could have put that in the think bucket too. I'm not sure if she put it in the connect bucket, but either way.
Okay, what was the question out of it? I
think it's at the end there, which is the problem I have is I will tend to get in my head from time to time, put added pressure on myself while feeling like I always have something to prove.
Cool. Man, I think that's a great. I think it's a great motivator. So like here's, I am not the Hermosi. I am not the Gary V of like, work until you prove them wrong. That's not who I am. But some of that is if you want to do what you're doing, like a hard thing like that, and that's a hard thing. Like being a female in a really male dominant thing, a profession. I like that you're an alpha. I like that you get after it. I like that you realize you have to work twice as hard. I like that you realize that this is a chance for you to see this as an opportunity. I like that you feel a little bit of pressure to prove yourself. Those to me are all features, not bugs. As long as the little type of thing where it's like, it gets in my head, I just need to know what that means. If that's like, it causes anxiety, it eats away at you, the pessimist of like, I'm never going to get ahead because it's stacked up against me, the victim just blaming everybody else, then there's some more work to be done. But man, like, I want to coach her. Like that's the person I want to coach. That's the person I want to work with. The person that recognizes that it's going to be hard and is up for the challenge. From there, I almost feel like we're playing with house money. Just don't let it eat you up is what it comes down to. Like, yes. And yeah, you're aware, like you might work twice as hard as somebody and somebody else might get the promotion. Screw them. Like just use it as more fuel. Like there's, I'm about balance. I'm about tranquility. I'm about peace of mind. I'm about calmness. I'm about, being curious, not judgmental. Like those are like the things, but I'm not the one to sit on the sidelines. Like one of the biggest motivators I had when I started my gym was, I'm not going to say who it was because they might be listening and I don't want to, but they definitely didn't think that I was going to be able to do this. And this person was really close to me. And I use that as a huge motivator. And it's this dangerous thing of external versus intrinsic motivation. And I think we become so binary. It doesn't need to be all intrinsic. And the danger, what we say is like, if it's all extrinsic, meaning, it's all about the accolades, the awards, the attention. But some of that is the thing that you might need when it's really, people have probably said this before, and I'll probably get this from somebody else, but I think if 80% of it is intrinsic, like I want to do this for me. I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see what I can do. I want to see what I can create. I want to see what I can build. I want to see how far I can lean into the uncomfortable. I want to see if I can, but then there's that 20% of like, F them, I'm going to show them what I'm made of. Like, because when it gets really hard and there's those you kind of need that thing. I think Tom Bilyeu talks about it in this form and fashion. It's like that 80% of, he calls that the dark place. If you have that, a little bit of the dark thing, I think that's okay.
That's interesting. Yeah. And we've talked about it before, but like, and you just sort of alluded to it, which is just, as long as the dark that the 20% doesn't slowly become 22% and 24% and 32%.
Absolutely.
And you find yourself 6 months later. And the only thing Chelsea is thinking about is, I got to prove that person wrong, or I can't believe that person got the promotion. I think that's the hard part, is to learn how to use that edge or that chip on your shoulder to your advantage without it becoming overwhelming, without it becoming something that weighs you down. And I think that's something that you have to learn how to modulate, because it's likely that there's a point in your life where you let it go too far. And then you're like, well, that didn't work at all, so I'm going to abandon that. And then you go to the other pendulum, and then you're lacking that. And I think that there's also danger in the complacency that comes without pushing yourself and without saying, where do I, or how do I measure up, or how could I measure up better in whatever scenario you might be in. And so again, I think it's a kind of balance that you don't think about, but it is also a kind of balance.
It's a diversification of motivation.
I like that.
It's like, if you're all in on one thing, if you're all in on stocks and you have nothing in reserves for when the market is crashing and falling apart, you have no cash or no fixed income, you have no bonds, you have it can work and serve you in certain scenarios, but like, you have 20% tucked away for like the tough times. Mm-hmm. And that's what this can be, because there's sometimes you just need to lean on those other levers. Example would be when somebody does, if you're all intrinsic and you're all that, like, it can kind of derail you a little bit if like you see the person behind you get promoted, person behind you get promoted, person behind you get promoted. You're like, oh, well, maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe they're trying to tell me something, that this isn't the thing I should be putting my efforts towards. But when that happens for the third and fourth time, you go like, oh, and it pops up, as you said, it's only the 20%, and it pops up. That can be the right fuel. But fuel can burn down the house.
Yes.
Like, you got to realize that it can burn down the house if you have too much of it there. And that's why it shouldn't be the main thing. Like, the main thing should be the main thing, which is, I want to see what I'm capable of.
Yep. I like that. The diversification of motivation. I dig that. All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for sending us questions. Again, www.chasingexcellence.email. We'll send out an email with a link to a form. You can submit your own, and we look forward to it. We're going to jump into our workout in just a few minutes. But first, a quick word of thanks from a few sponsors. We're brought to you this week by Element. We talk about Element all the time here on the show. They've been a fantastic and long-term partner. But pay attention, something new from Element is on the horizon. When you become an Element Insider, you will have early and exclusive access to their brand new Element Sparkling, a bold new zero sugar electrolyte drink in a 16-ounce can of sparkling water.
Whoa.
This is the proverbial, I knew you'd love this. This is the proverbial 1 + 1 = 3 people. Head to drinkelement.com/excellence to learn more and sign up for Element Insider so you can get your calloused mitts on Element Sparkling. It comes in amazing flavors like citrus salt, watermelon salt, grapefruit salt, and the debut of black cherry lime. It's just 5 calories, 0 grams of sugar, and packed with essential electrolytes, 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, 60 milligrams magnesium. To become an Element Insider, you'll just need to have purchased the Element Insider bundle within the last 9 months. Afterwards, as long as you're logged into the website, you'll see and be able to purchase Element Sparkling. They are not sure when Element Sparkling will launch to the broader public, so if you want to be the coolest kid in gym class, becoming an insider is the only way to do it. Just head to drinkelement.com/excellence to learn more. And even if you don't grab yourself an insider bundle, you'll still get a free sample pack with any drink mix purchase. Again, drinkelement.com, LMNT, the letters, /excellence.
What was the size of it? How big is it?
16-ounce can.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes.
Well,
because that's what I was like, oh, but I like Element. One of the reasons I like it is because it gets me to drink more. So I put it in a shaker, which is 20 ounces. And if it was coming in a little can, only 12, I'd be like, but this is like a tall boy.
Yeah, that's right. All right. We're also brought to you this week by Momentous. Supplements can sometimes feel like a dirty word, sometimes because they've earned that reputation. But Momentous is changing the game with their dedication to transparency, integrity, and quality. If you're ready for the best supplements on the planet, head to livemomentous.com and use the code excellence to save yourself 15% off your purchase or 36% off your first subscription order. We talk about Momentous Sleep here on the show all the time, but that's not all they've got. When you head to their site, you'll see they've got creatine, omega-3, and protein supplements, all of which I have in my pantry right now. now. You can trust Momentous because of their unparalleled commitment to using the highest quality ingredients and their investment in third-party testing. They collaborate with the best experts in the field and hold their products to the highest standards, even those set by the NFL and NBA. It's what they call the Momentous Standard, which is really the industry's leading standard in quality. If you're like me and want to take supplements that are made by and used by the best in the world, go to livemomentous.com. Use the code EXCELLENCE to get up to 36% off your first subscription order. If you don't feel like subscribing, you can still get 15% off all of your favorite products. That's at livemomentous.com with the code EXCELLENCE. All right, amigo, our workout. This is an anonymous question, as will become clear why in a moment. It's a bit of a long question. I'm going to kind of go quick. In 2022, I was overweight, overtired, and overwhelmed. During 2022, I received news of my first of 2 cancer scares. I knew I needed to change, so I revisited the conversation with my husband about working part-time, which was a pretty big step of courage for me, but I had reached a limit. My husband eventually warmed to it, but a few months before my part-time role began, he had a 2-week meltdown. I felt utterly let down, disappointed, and fed up. In November of 2022, I decided to clean up my diet. I built up to attending CrossFit classes 6 days a week by January of 2023. I was 46 years old at the time, and I began researching how, at this stage of life, I could improve my performance at the gym. I stumbled onto your podcast and haven't missed an episode since. The 5 Factors of Health have been an incredible journey of discovery for me. I can only say thank you for giving me my life back and a highly improved version at that. Now 22 kilos lighter and smashing my fitness goals, I try hard to be a realist, and I try hard to be mindful every day. My marriage is looking to be irreparable, but I've gained the insight and confidence to know I see my value and understand that relying on others for happiness is not achievable, and also understanding that I'm not responsible for the happiness of others. I read a Bruce Lee quote that stated, "Whatever we are not changing, we are also choosing." And it reminded me of what you said, that we are not trees. If you are unhappy, you can move. I've recently resigned from my teaching job as the overtime work and related stress has affected my sleep, which in turn affects my state of mind, performance, and recovery. It took a long while to come to terms with the fact that while my job is purposeful, it's not bringing me joy. I honestly do love the kids, but struggle with the environment and workload. I'm trying to figure out my purpose in life, but to be honest, I have no idea what it is. Isn't it funny? I'm almost 48 years old and I'm feeling completely lost. How does one work toward finding their purpose?
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and
Okay.
I'm curious what popped out at you. So I'm going to give you a chance to respond as you'd respond, and then obviously I've got some follow-up questions and some things in there that popped out at me.
Okay. So there's certainly a lot of background there, and appreciate the background. Let's take it from the last question though. Like, how does one
work toward finding
that, right? How does one, what do you believe is the meaning of life? And that's a big unanswerable question, right? But here's, I share this because when I'm listening to people discuss that, I don't want them to say it's what you believe it is, right? I want you to tell me what you believe. I want to hear that from 100 people, and I want to beg, borrow, and steal, and so I can I want some sparks to be lit. So here's what I believe, and I'll share a little bit more in a second, but I believe the meaning of life is to live life. And once you realize that, then the purpose of life is to have a meaningful life. And that's what it is. Then how do you define meaning? Is that impact? Is that your own evolution? There's a whole bunch of, but I really do believe if you start with that as the peak of it, the decision trees on the way down can get more fragmented and wider spread. But if we think of it as, purpose, I think where everyone goes is like, well, is my purpose to be an artist? Is my purpose to be a teacher? Is my purpose to work at a CrossFit gym? Is my purpose? Those aren't purposes. Those are ways that you can bring your purpose to life. And it's the same thing when you're talking about business or military. There should be an overarching goal. After the goal, there's objectives. After the objectives, there's strategies. After the strategies, there's tactics. So military, right? The overarching goal is to maintain freedom at home. Like that's why we have a military. So the people living at home can remain free. Okay. What's the goal there? Maybe the goal is to bring the fight to the bad guys so they don't bring them to us. I'm just throwing stuff out there, right? Maybe it's, back in the Cold War, they felt like it was to stop the spread of communism is the goal. Okay. From there, what are some objectives? Well, it's like the objectives are to find bin Laden, right? To stockpile nuclear weapons so that the Soviet Union is scared of us. Cool. Strategies. Well, the strategies are we got to hire scientists. We got to invest in Space Force. And you get strategies. What are the tactics? The tactics are, and you fall down to these things. I think people, when they hear purpose, fall into the tactics. They're trying to figure out what are the tactics that they should. The tactics are interchangeable. So whether you're a teacher, whether you're in volunteer work, whether you become a CEO, or you go and live in the Himalayas and pray 20 hours a day, all of those tactics could stem up to a similar objective. So start at the top. What do you believe is the meaning of life? And that's mine. I'm sharing with you mine. And I'm not saying it's right. Mine, I believe, is to evolve, to become the best versions of ourselves. And before I go any deeper into mine, I'll just pull up on Wikipedia. So this is Wikipedia. Meaning of life, right? Meaning of life on Wikipedia. To realize one's potential and ideas. There is a bunch of subcategories in that. To chase dreams, to live one's dreams, to spend it for something that will outlast, to matter, to count, to stand for something. Sounds like Nelson Mandela, like that type of stuff. Like, awesome, that's so cool. Number 2, after to realize one potential, to evolve, to achieve biological perfection, right? It is to survive, to live as long as possible, to evolve, to change from generation to generation. Number 3, to seek wisdom and knowledge, to expand one's perspective on the world, follow the clues and to learn as many things as possible in life, to know as much as possible. Cool. Number 4, to do good, to do the right thing, to leave the world a better place than you found it. To me, that falls in the evolution thing. To do your best, to leave every situation better than you found it, to benefit others, to give more than you take, to end suffering, to create, to challenge, to be generous. Like, you get the idea. Like, what do those resonate with you? Then from there, this is like, okay, that's that meaning of life. To me, like, my purpose is to have a meaningful life. Like, that should be everyone's, like, it's the same, like, we should all have the same thing. As we talked a little bit ago, we should all have this same shared, like, the idea is to have a really awesome life. Now, that awesome life doesn't mean things go the way you want them to. Viktor Frankl had an amazing life. He was also a prisoner of war, and his family got ripped out of his hands and burned to death. Like, that's horrific. But that didn't shy him away from having a purposeful, meaningful life. And too much of us are centered around the circumstances, my husband, my job, these other things. And we look to all these other things outside of ourselves that say, like, well, I can't find any purpose in my teaching. I can't find any purpose in my marriage. I can't find any, whatever it might be. It's so funny. Like, I'm about to reference Tom Bilyeu again for the second time in this. I haven't listened to Tom Bilyeu in probably 6 years, which is crazy. But his answer to this question is for people that are really struggling. And this sounds weird for him to recommend this for this population. People that are really struggling to find purpose. Do you know what his is? His suggestion is?
No, I don't. No.
Have kids. He doesn't have kids, which is also more bizarre. Like, he and his wife have chosen not to have children. But he goes, if you want instantaneous meaning and purpose to your life, have children. And all of a sudden you see it's something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
But this is the thing, is like, start with the big thing. I think that she is starting with tactics. And she's going, I'm not finding purpose and meaning in teaching. I'm not finding purpose and meaning in my relationship with my husband. I'm not yeah, for sure. That's like going from tactic to tactic to tactics in business. and going like, okay, I think we should really double down on social media. I think that we should create partnerships. I think that we should triple our investment into R&D. I think that we should cut our burn rate. I think that we should, and you're just taking all these different tactics. Well, like, whoa. For what? For what? Underlined, for what purpose? What is the purpose of doing those things? Well, in business, it's the same thing in life. For business, the purpose of business is to stay in business. It's the infinite game. That's what you're actually trying to do. Now, the bigger and badder you become, the more of a tail you have, the more it takes to disrupt that. It's kind of like life. Like if you want to stay alive, well, if you only have a carrot growing in your backyard and winter is coming, like that's going to be a tough winter. I don't know if you're going to make it. Whereas if you have a home with heating and a stockpile of food and supplies, you're more likely to survive. And that's why businesses want to get bigger. It's not just to get bigger, it's because the purpose of business is to stay in business. And the bigger you are, the more it takes to upend you. Minus a few, which are like Enron, and they do exist, but that's been generally what makes someone a blue chip company. So that's what are we trying to do? Live. Like that's what I think it is. Like, and that's my purpose is to, I've shared this before. My purpose is my mission is to live a life of purpose with poise, with passion, with balance. Like that to me is like, if I have that, now it's all intrinsic. Now I have control over that. And here's I can see that you have follow-ups and I know that you're itching to, I'll leave it with this last thing. If you're really struggling, lean into things that you're already doing, which is lean into, like, remember, what are the few fundamental behaviors? That's the way we start off every single show. What are the few fundamental behaviors? How you move. It's just, you're doing that. You started CrossFit, you lost, I think she said like
22 kilos.
Yeah, you lost 50 pounds. Like, awesome, amazing. So move. Awesome. Eat food that nourishes you, your body. Like you will have more clarity of mind if you do that. Sleep. And then here's the big ones. We can't forget these. We are not trying to be professional athletes. Is connect and think. And this listener, I think, is stuck a little bit in the victim mindset. They're thinking a little bit kind of like, no matter what I do, I'm 48 years old, marriage bad, tried career bad, exhausted from work. Like I couldn't take the environment of being in academia. Like, okay, like we should be able to handle just about any situation we're thrown into. And it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be work. And realize that. That's the realist. And I love that, she said, like, I'm trying to be mindful, trying to live a life of a realist as much as possible. Okay. But ask, like, be the person you want. Act like you want the person you want to be. That's it. Shortcut to all this stuff is the person that you want to be. Just start acting like that person. Honestly, like, when you're in a meeting and someone's being emotionally irrational towards you, how at your greatest level, your highest level of character, how would you respond to that situation? Here's the life of purpose. Be that person. Be the person built on character first.
Sort of related to that. The first thing that popped out in her question was actually the Bruce Lee quote. So I looked it up, and I think, it's the internet. So if this is wrong, folks, I apologize. But this is, and I found it in a few different places. This is the full quote from Bruce Lee. And I think you'll really, really appreciate this. Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing. And obviously she pulled out the last, what you're not changing, you're also choosing, which is a fascinating way to look at it.
Yeah, I've reposted that quote.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yep. I love it. I think it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If we all, yeah.
The other thing that I'm curious about is, or that popped out to me, is she talked about the recognition that she's not responsible for the happiness of others. And I think what's also really important to make sure you also recognize, that we all recognize, is that no one is responsible for our happiness as well. And understanding that those are two sides of the same coin, and recognizing that, again, it's we are responsible for our own happiness. We're responsible for pursuing purpose, pursuing the meaningful life. It's not in that person will grant me the rights, the permission. That job won't give us the rights or the permission to pursue happiness, to pursue our happiness, but that it's ours and ours alone. And of course, again, the flip is, if you're not doing it, it's not my job to make sure you do it. If you're not pursuing whatever you define purpose as, I can't make you pursue it. In the same way I can't make you go to the gym, in the same way I can't make you stop eating pizza every night. It comes back down to the responsibility, the recognition of the responsibility that we each have to, as you said, pursue the meaningful life. First define it, first understand what it is, first recognize that it's probably not going to come in the shape of a paycheck or even a marriage, and then to actually, do what needs to be done to actually put your feet in the direction of your purpose.
That level of responsibilities. So the beginning part where you said there is so powerful, and it's responsibility. Can you repeat that beginning part if you remember it?
Yeah, I think it was just that she's recognizing that she's not responsible for the happiness of others. And when you recognize that, it is easy to forget that means, when you have that recognition, that they are not responsible for your happiness either.
That's so spot on. To me, I don't want to pick on the listener at all, but that's a big telltale for me when somebody says that. Like, I'm not responsible for his happiness. I don't mean to pick, but that is a highlight to me. Is worth. What that means is, I don't believe that they've accepted that responsibility for themselves just yet.
Yep.
Because they could have just as easily said the other way, which is, I realize that other people aren't responsible for my happiness, and it's something that I need to take responsibility for. I'm not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the thing that is easier to work with than people that recognize that they're not responsible for other people's happiness.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need, that's a given. That's just like, that's how stakes, like, that just could be a part of the game. We know that. When you're ready to realize that it's all on you for you, then we start to play the game.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to put the mindset continuum inside of that, or put that inside of the mindset continuum, right? The victim mindset would be, they're not making me happy, or it's not making me happy. The pessimist would be, some version of, why can't I find anybody to make me happy? The optimist is like, there's somebody out there to make me happy. I've got to find them.
Right.
And then we get into the realist, which is like, they don't exist.
Yeah.
Only I can ever make myself happy.
I really like that. They don't exist. It's not maybe I'll find them, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they don't exist.
You're chasing a ghost.
Yes.
And the optimists chase ghosts, thinking that they will eventually find that person or that thing. Again, because I think it could be a person, it could be a job, it could be whatever it might be. But they're just chasing ghosts, because there's only one thing and one entity that can bring us to the point to our purpose, to our meaningful life, to our happiness, to our fulfillment. And it's us. And then I wonder, and I'm going to put it back to you, because I don't have a great answer off the top of my head. What is the curious competitor? What is the competitor in that, across that continuum? What do they say in relation to this kind of question?
So the victim and the pessimist, it's all about external circumstances. It's all about outside of me. It's all about, this sucks, or this person's to blame. And the opposite side of that spectrum is, it's all on me. It's just that. So the realist goes, they don't exist. Mm-hmm. The curious competitor goes, it's on me. That's what happens. It's like, I want to build this inside. It's all Victims look at circumstances. I do it in 2 C's, circumstances. Competitors look at character. They see every situation as an opportunity to build their character. That's what it's all about. And in my end, it's like, back to that meaning of life, it's like, it's the evolution of our souls. Like, can we just become better and better beings? Now, there's a part of that that's emotional, and there's a part of that that is spiritual, and there's a part of that that is physical, better beings. But it's the essence of our soul, which is like this thing inside of me that we can't comprehend. We have no concept of what the thing actually is. We're trying to make that thing as robust, as formidable, as at peace as possible. And the competitor looks at everything at all times through those glasses. Whereas the victim doesn't see that at all. It's just pointing fingers. It's the thing we said, pointing fingers versus pulling thumbs. This is like, it's because of that or them or this thing or that event or whatever. That's what it is. Whereas the competitor goes, on me, guys. Me. Like, I need to grow. I need to, actually, take it back. There is no needs. I want to grow. I want to evolve. I want to be able to handle this better. And that's what I really think that if you think of life as just this big game, and sometimes you play games and it's 33 degrees out, 20 miles an hour and raining. And sometimes that game might last for a decade. Okay, how are you going to play? Like, how are you going to play? Like, now that that's the situation, like Tom Brady was the best at this, the best. Whenever it was snowing or cold or crappy weather or raining, he knew he wouldn't be able to block that out better than the defenders. And it was just a massive advantage for him. Just like that. Like, there's what we can control and what we can't. So we're playing the game. We're playing the game of life. So what is the purpose? It's to play the game as best as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. So if you pick up your ball and run off the playground, that's not playing the game very well. Yep. If you, every time it comes to you, just let the ball drop on the ground, walk over to it, pick it up, slowly throw it half-heartedly back into the infield, that's not playing the game very well. Are you here to play the game of life? There. What's your purpose? To play the game of life as best you possibly can. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to bring the analogy back of business, like the point of business is to stay in business. The point of living a purposeful life or meaningful life is to live a more meaningful life or a more purposeful life.
It sounds like we're talking ourselves in circles. Yeah. But that's what it actually is. Yeah. Like to play it the best that you possibly can. Now, you don't go, well, Elon Musk is living a more meaningful life than I am. No, we don't know. We're playing an infant game. We don't know what the rules of the game are. We don't know that like someone that sends humanity to Mars is more meaningful than somebody that took in an injured dog. Like, we don't know that. We don't know the rules. So what you're doing is you're just trying to do the very best you can with what you got right now. That's it. Do what you can with what you got for where you are.
I think that is a perfect spot to wrap up. Thank you. That was great. Thank you to the individual who sent us that question. We're going to jump into a cool down in just a minute, but first, a few word of thanks from a few more sponsors. We're brought to you this week by Lumen. Let's talk metabolic health. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. Learn more by going to lumen.me. Make sure you use the code excellence to get $100 off your Lumen. What does Lumen do? It measures the CO2 levels in your breath, to interpret your metabolism by understanding if your body is using carbs or fat for fuel. Just breathe into your Lumen in the morning and you'll get a clear picture of your metabolic health. You can also use it before and after workouts and meals for real-time insights and tips. Lumen provides recommendations to improve your metabolic health with each breath, designed to fuel your workouts for better performance and recovery. Lumen then takes all this data and provides you with a flex score, showing you how flexible your metabolism is. The measurement is a comprehensive evaluation of your metabolism, initially based on 2 weeks of measurements and other tracked metabolic factors to determine your flexibility. This is important because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, and optimal metabolic health translates into a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and better sleep. So if you're ready to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me, that's lumen.me. Use the code excellence to get $100 off your Lumen.
That's just not just words. Like, metabolic flexibility is one of the key cornerstones of overall health. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes at one end of the spectrum. It's like hyperinsulinemia. The stage before that is called insulin resistance. What we're looking for is insulin sensitivity. Like, that's where we want to be. And that is, we want to be able to kind of like flip into keto and burn fat and do this. Like, that's a really healthy place to be.
Again, lumen.me. Use the code excellence to save yourself $100. We're also brought to you this week by OneSkin. Mother's Day is right around the corner, and what better way to appreciate the moms and caregivers in our lives than by giving them the gift of healthy skin with OneSkin. Head to oneskin.co and use the code excellence to get 15% off your first order. OneSkin's scientifically validated skincare routine targets the root cause of aging, not just the symptoms. Their proprietary OS01 peptide is the first ingredient proven to switch off the cells that cause aging skin. It's backed by several studies and has over 4,000 five-star reviews. OneSkin doesn't just focus on surface symptoms of skin aging, but addresses the underlying decline in skin health. In a third-party 12-week clinical study, OS01 Face was clinically proven to strengthen the skin barrier, improve skin health markers, and diminish visible signs of aging. So for all the moms and caregivers who do so much for others, it's time to do something good for them this Mother's Day. Try OneSkin today. Get 15% off your first purchase with the code excellence at oneskin.co. And don't forget to tell them that we sent you. Okay, our cool down, my friend. We had the first episode of the year. I believe I'm right about that. We had a listener send us an audio segment. His name was Nick. And he had sent us an audio segment because he and I messaged back and forth. And what he was doing, or what he wanted to talk about, was all the work he's doing to sort of build a fitter group of friends. And not by fitter, but like they work out together, though his name's Nick. He owns a CrossFit gym, so he's doing that too. But it more fitter in the sense of like our connection is stronger, our friendship is stronger. And so he sent us in, I don't know, maybe it was an 8 or 10 minute little audio segment. And we ran that. And then I had at least 2 or 3 people reach out and say, hey, can you tell us how to do that better? And I thought, well, no better than Nick himself to tell us how he was doing it. So he and I jumped on a call a couple weeks ago, and we did like a 30-minute conversation about kind of breaking down the hows and whats and whys of how he is, in fact, building fitter friendships with his close circle of friends. And so what we've got now, so the full conversation is in the premium membership. You can go get it now, www.chasingexcellence.email. Here is a short segment from that longer conversation that I thought was really good. So we're just going to listen to that and get a little bit more insight from Nick, who, as far as I can tell, is a very good dude. And then we'll just be back to say goodbye at the end of it. Can you talk a little bit about the structure of those?
Yeah.
And maybe there's 2 different structures, right? Because I'm sure that if you guys are hanging out for a day and a half, it's obviously different than, an hour or an hour and a half. So maybe stick with, maybe start with the virtual one, with the assumption, well, I don't know if that's the accurate assumption that a lot of people could be doing this virtually, but let's go there because it's maybe a little simpler. What does that structure look like? Are you running, I don't know if we want to call it a meeting, but are you running it? Do you have a series of questions?
For sure.
Do you have like, okay, the first 5 minutes we do this, the next 10 minutes we do that? It's kind of running it like a CrossFit class.
For sure. Think all of that. Think CrossFit class. It's like, hey, I only got a certain amount of time with these guys. So there's a certain amount of time to BS and catch up. But everybody knows like, hey, this will be a relatively structured meeting, specifically because it's virtual and, it's late at night. There's a topic. So the topics, we typically really only have 1 or 2 questions based around a topic per meeting, but with 5 of us, we feel like that's about all we can handle for an hour or 2. If one guy talks for 5 minutes on the same topic, that's 25 minutes when you go around the table. So So time is of the essence. So we run it kind of like a CrossFit class or a board meeting, and we say, hey, we got about 5 minutes to just chit chat, and then we're calling to order, and we get right into it. And it's helpful. I'm kind of the organizer of this, and I'll send out the topic of discussion and maybe the bullet points or the specific questions. But the topic and the question is based around a pillar of life. Marriage is an easy one because we've been talking about it, but marriage, parenting, spirituality, finances, work. These are all just things that we all have in our lives that can either grow or die or can move forward or backwards. So if marriage is the topic, we're going to have a discussion based around one or two very specific questions around our marriage, and everybody gets a chance to not only talk through that, but then also ask follow-up questions. Part of the magic in these meetings is our ability to learn how to ask each other good questions and not just answer a blank statement of a question. So call to order. They know the discussion. We all know the discussion topic and kind of the bullet points. Typically, we'll go around the room. Depends on the pillar that we're talking about and the discussion questions. But that can range from an hour to an hour and a half, and it allows time for guys to celebrate each other, cheer each other on, or encourage each other, and maybe the iron sharpens iron happens in these meetings as well, where if somebody has something that needs to be worked on, then we can say, hey, what do the next 30 days look like for you? What is the next 1 year from now? How will your marriage improve because of X, Y, or Z? What can you start doing today to improve that area? And again, marriage is just the current example, but insert any of those, what will your work life be?
And is it presented in such a way that, if, whatever the subject is and it's my turn to talk, is it presented, do you guys go in with a sense of like, here's what I'm struggling with, here's a challenge, I need you 4 people who I trust, who I have a relationship with, who have their own unique perspectives. I need you guys to help me through this? Or is it more of a, here's what's going on, and this is more of an update than an ask for a solution?
Yeah.
Right. Because I think and maybe it's meant that way, but I think it could be really easy to default to, okay, we're here to solve all the problems. What do you got? What problems you got? Cool. Let's solve it collectively. Is that the point of it? Or is it broader and more than just let's solve whatever problem is in front of us now?
Yeah, it's not necessarily let's solve the problem. It is oftentimes more of an update. I think part of the theory is if we're updating and we're up to speed on what's going on and how we're doing in these areas, that maybe there will be fewer and fewer challenges to, problems to solve in the long term, right? If although there can be, and there surely will be moments where a guy can come to the table, and if marriage is the discussion topic of the night, and say, hey, it's been a hard month, for whatever reason, can you guys help me, or what do you guys think? That can easily come to the table, but the expectation is that we're not trying to find or uncover or just unearth problems and challenges and bring them out. I don't think guys are really wired that way fully, but it's more of a let's talk about our lives so that we're all in tune with it, and that we're helping each other grow and move these things forward. And everyone's in a different spot in a different season, and we're, like I said, 2 years into it, and there's a spectrum of conversation there.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, you've mentioned it at least once, and I know you mentioned it in the original audio, that sometimes you've got homework to do. So I assume that what's coming up next month, and maybe you send out here's what we're going to talk about. Yeah. Can you have a sense of what that kind of homework,
Sure.
And homework can be in air quotes, but what does that actually look like? What do you expect people to come into, your friends to come into these calls with, or having done, or having thought through?
Yeah. It can be small. It could be like a 30-day task, or it could be something larger. So the larger example, near the end of the year last year, and I think we did this the first year as well, but the homework was, and I think I stated it September or October, I said, hey, by the end of the year, we need to come to this group and we need to have an investment in our marriage planned. You tell me what the investment is. I'm not going to dictate what does it mean for you to invest in your marriage, but you need to be able to tell this group, how am I investing in the relationship with my wife. So that one was, again, we had like 3 months to plan it, and it looked, and guys came back with a bunch of different things. For me and my wife, it was, we were going to find a mentor couple. For a few other guys that said, hey, we're taking a trip to Canada and we're going to do this and this and this. So that was a little bit of a larger homework assignment. Like, what are we doing for an investment? On the marriage topic, what was it? The most recent one was, I kind of had a list of qualities, attributes about our spouse. I said, hey, here's a list of 20 attributes, circle the top 3, and that your wife has. She's gentle, she's kind, she's caring, she's listening, whatever, loving. Circle her top 3 attributes, have a conversation with her and talk about that attribute. Say, man, my wife's name is Ashley. So Ashley, you are so thoughtful and caring when you, do X, Y, or Z. When you help me have a guy's night, you're so thoughtful and caring that she helps me prioritize these nights. And those are specific examples. So that's like hey, in the next 30 days, I need you to have one conversation with your wife, and it's an intentional conversation about that. So that's kind of a little bit of the homework piece of it. Some were between now and the next meeting. We rate these 5 or 6 areas of your life in terms of growth. So are you growing or not intellectually, spiritually? Is your marriage growing? That sort of thing. So just rate them 1 to 6, because we're going to talk about it next month. So the homework is, hey, for next month, come ready to discuss this. And I need you to, to put some numbers to your growth.
Thank you to Nick again for that conversation. If you want to get the whole thing, www.chasingexcellence.email. Join us on the premium side of things. Not only will you get more conversations like that, but we've got exclusive content, as well as we're running some challenges, and you can have some conversations there. It is a wonderful space to continue chasing excellence with us. Ben, thank you very much. You and I will be back next week for a brand new episode of Chasing Excellence.